That was rude. Yeah, like I was saying,
There we go.
first time, the entire time I've been over here that I've been disconnected from the internet in like the couple weeks now, had to be while we're running the show. Seems
Yeah,
like
I
someone
can't believe
outsmarted
it.
me.
I can't believe that that's a coincidence. Like, yeah, I've had problems where it seems like it only happens when I'm live streaming.
Oh, like what's up
So I
with
feel
that?
like it's has something to do with maybe the high upload amount that you're using. I don't
Maybe,
know.
especially we typically, because I know you don't usually go too late, though I have seen you in like the middle of the night live streaming. We typically
Sometimes.
stream during peak usage hours, so wouldn't be surprised if it has anything to do with like neighborhood usage and stuff too.
Yeah.
But, definitely gonna have to piece
But
that
anyway.
together.
Yeah, so as I was saying, building a world with a 3D engine where it's fully actually 3D, even if you try to constrain it
Yeah.
so that it is similar to 2D, like they did, especially with Link's Awakening, uh, there's, imperfections.
Yeah. Especially because, like, I know a lot of people are against this these days because a lot of people used to complain about them all the time. But if you're playing a game, especially one that's not like a 3D platformer, right? Like you're trying to have something that has more of that 2D feel free to use invisible walls just to constrain your game even more. I know invisible
Yeah.
walls used to piss people off in platformers, but come on, they can really help make sure players don't do things they're not supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they should have put invisible walls that disappear after you do certain things, I guess, in
Yeah.
that gym. But I don't know.
Or one
And
way walls, right? Well, that was the problem, right? So though in the 2D game, those ramps kind of work like invisible walls, right? The ones on the side. You
yeah,
cannot go up them at all.
yeah,
So you have to solve the puzzle so the stairway activates. You can go up the stair. But in this one, because of the weird way with clipping works, and I guess there isn't really an invisible wall, there's just like a physics that stops you from going up slopes. That
yeah.
they just go up the slope against the wall of the stairway at an angle. And it's like, well, if you just put an invisible wall there, this wouldn't be a problem in the first place.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's just not done anymore in 3D development.
I guess. I don't know. I think it's just because people used to bitch about invisible walls too much. And I never got that, right? Like, I mean, certain 3D platformers, like, is it a little disappointing when you encounter an invisible wall? Sure. Whatever. But it's not the end of the world. There's probably a reason that wall was there from the developers. And, like, we ran this several times. You'd clip into the thing. You'd get stuck. So it's just better that there's a wall there that stops you from interacting with that object whatsoever.
Hmm.
But I think most people, when they bitch about it, they don't consider that there could be a possibility that that wall is there for a good reason.
Yeah. I've been amazed to continue to watch people break the walls in Breath of the Wild,
Yeah.
where if you bomb yourself into a wall, you clip right through and stuff like that.
Some classic
I don't
Zelda
know.
shenanigans.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know how
almost
it works.
every
I guess
game.
it's
Bombing is the way that you clip through things. It
Yeah.
seems,
yeah. I guess the math it launches you so quickly that the very next frame calculates where you're supposed to be, and you're beyond the point where the wall would normally push you back.
Yeah.
So very interesting.
Well, I think part of the real problem too is that when we look at it from an actual like mesh perspective, most of these walls aren't thick either, right? They're like a thin, like textured mesh that's just there to show a boundary, right? So the fact that there's literally nothing there, yeah, you're talking about the next frame. Well, it's not like you'd be in a wall. There's empty space on the other side for your thing to be rendered.
Hmm. Yeah, you're just normally when you come up to a wall, like it calculates it. You've got your what do you call it? Your hitbox,
Yeah.
and it goes a little bit into the wall, and then it says, "Oh, you're a little bit in here. I need to push you back out."
Yeah, you're hitting a boundary.
And yeah, but if you are going so fast that the very next, you're up against the wall, and the very next frame you're all the way on the other side of the wall because you're moving so fast.
Or even if like most of your hitbox is on the other side, because then it's going to say render that you need to be on that side of the boundary.
Yeah. Depends on how it's programmed, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's generally how it works. Just gotta very, very quickly go right through the wall.
And especially because I know this is how it was done in Ocarina of Time, because I've watched a lot of speedrunners explain particularly about Ocarina of Time, because a lot of them have gone in and data mined it to death by this point. So I'm assuming it's the same way. To save on memory, like on storage in the game, all of the objects are basically hollow, right? Because if you make even some things filled objects, that would take up more memory. And especially in Breath of the Wild, if say the mountains were solid, you wouldn't have this problem. But because things are all it's just a meshing with a texture on it that dictates a boundary, that's where the problem comes in. And in Ocarina of Time, it's like, okay, we'll understand the data storage limits of the cartridge and how small the world is. But as we get to Breath of the Wild, it's even more of a problem because how big the world is and how much storage they're using as it is.
Generally speaking, I don't think any object is solid in a 3D.
In Ocarina of Time, there actually are some, like the blocks that you use in the big block puzzles that Link pushes around are solid objects. You actually can't go through the blocks. If you want to clip past them, you have to clip through the wall next to the block using bomb explosives and stuff. There are some actual solid objects in the game, but they're minimal because of storage limitations. I don't know which things are solid in Breath of the Wild. Maybe some of the doors are, which is why you should clip through a wall next to the door.
Yeah, even the characters, though, usually, I've seen where they'll, manage to get a version where they can free float the camera. I saw some video of where they were looking around the environments in Metroid Dread, and they looked inside Samus's helmet, and of course you get too close, and her face disappears.
Yeah, or
just hollow.
Odyssey, where they go on the inside of Peach, and you can see that her eyes are textured on the inside and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, well, especially character models and stuff. I know those tend to be more hollow for two reasons. And one of the main ones is posability. It's easier with hollow models and stuff like that. But then there are certain things, like, say, a big cube, right? It's easy just to render a big cube. And
it doesn't move. It doesn't change shape.
And especially for physics, too, sometimes a solid object, it's easier to program for, kinetic physics and stuff. Which is why ragdolling is so weird, since, posable characters tend to be hollow on the inside.
Yeah.
So they're interacting with not just the physics of the game, but there's an invisible skeleton that the model is, rigged to, and that's what causes all of the issues there.
Yeah. Speaking of skeletons and ragdolls and such.
Oh, yeah?
Have you seen this? Have you seen this new, incredibly realistic robot?
No.
With the face? You haven't seen this thing?
No, I have not.
Oh my god. It's been all over. Yeah, you don't hang out on Twitter very much. There's this new robot.
Twitter, 2 or 3 times a day. Usually when I first wake up, or I go to sleep, or if I have to take a shit. That's the time I spend on Twitter.
Yeah. I'll probably be able to find it, but yeah, there's this new robot made by somebody that does realistic facial expressions, and it's kind of freaky. It's kind of, I don't know if you would even call it Uncanny Valley. I think they've actually managed to get beyond the Uncanny Valley to the point where it's just so realistic. It's still a little uncanny because it moves a little bit robotic like, but like if you take a screenshot of it, it's just like, oh my god. It looks so realistic. But
Well, then I think if it's realistic, it actually is uncanny, because that's what the term means, that it's a remarkable resemblance, right? The whole
yeah,
uncanny valley is there's this valley you have to pass before things have that remarkable resemblance.
yeah,
So, like, say, when they found Anastasia and Anastasia, her resemblance to the princess was uncanny, right? That that's what we're trying to get past. If we got past the valley, we actually are finally at a point where they are uncanny.
I guess so. But it's definitely. I don't know. I don't know if it's like it's almost like iRobot territory, you know,
Oh yeah,
like the
like Sunny.
the realism of the face. Here, I could show it. I mean, obviously for anyone
Yeah.
who is watching, but let me see. Sierra Whiskey on Twitter had tweeted it recently.
Oh, no, that's better
Yeah.
than iRobot.
And it doesn't look. But wait until it opens its eyes, and it's like the musculature of the face is just amazing.
That's like Vision territory.
Like Marvel Vision,
Yeah,
Marvels.
where like they take Bettany
Watch this,
and yeah, that's a good expression. They take
and then
Bettany
it'll.
and they kind of like push him down to look more like a robot. This is like if you went in the opposite direction to try to make it look more like a human.
Yeah, like the smile at the end is a little unnerving.
Yeah.
But it's
But you know
from
what?
Engineered Arts.
It's not that bad because I know people with unnerving smiles in real life.
Yeah.
I mean, that looks more like a person than Mark Zuckerberg, so.
Yeah, it's true. Very true. Yeah, from some company called Engineered Arts. This is like the most realistic face on a robot that I've ever seen.
Yeah, and I don't think, like, so the limitations have been, can we get the animatronics on the inside of the face to be as precise as human musculature? Like, how small can we
Yeah.
make all of the systems, and can they operate with each other in tandem properly? Because we could make faces that look realistic to put on robots forever, because that's just like the makeup department that does like monster prosthetics and stuff. That's not the hard part.
Yeah.
It's just like, can we get the little joints to move in tandem properly, or are they just
Yeah.
going to look like the weird, unsatisfying grins from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle animatronics?
Yeah, it's the amount of individual quote unquote muscles underneath that
Yeah.
they can. Because I imagine it's on the human face. There's like 100 different kind of muscles
there's like
working together.
what is it, it's like 166 or something muscles that are just in the smile alone, and it
Yeah.
takes more muscles to smile than it does to frown.
Yeah, in all the small different ways that. So I guess that's what they're working towards, getting it realistic. Why? Worldwide takeover of robots? I don't
No,
know
I mean
why.
there are practical reasons why you would want highly realistic robots, especially let's say, what's the one job nobody wants in the whole world? Hospice care.
Coal miner? Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude, I think many people would rather hop in that coal mine before it is taking care of, like, elderly people on their deathbed.
Yeah.
But you still
Yeah.
want to be nice to them. So, like, what would be a good replacement for that? Robots that feel like real people.
Yeah.
That can actually smile at them appropriately and stuff. Now, I think real people should still be taking care of the elderly. They deserve it. But, I'm just saying, I understand the motivation for wanting to go in that direction. There are plenty of jobs, especially with the elderly, that would benefit from highly realistic robots.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah.
We're getting there. Or Belly's Pastry says, long time to go see. What's that?
Until all these robots go all Christian. I don't even know what that means. I'm like...
I know. I'm like, what?
It's not their mom. They're a robot. There's nothing ethically wrong with that.
That's right.
Yeah.
You mean robots designing Sonichu clones or something?
No, that would be the problem. No, they'd probably look better. I mean, do you see that part in iRobot where Sonny draws his dream and is basically just like a lithographic printer tracing everything out?
Yeah, look perfect.
Yeah.
A robot-generated Sonichu would be beautiful.
Yeah. Horrifyingly beautiful.
That's right.
But that, actually, in iRobot 2, that seemed to be one of the most common uses for the robots. There was like an elderly woman. It was helping her with her groceries and stuff, or it actually was retrieving her purse. One thing, and he thought that it stole a purse. Yeah, and that's why he hunted it down.
Yeah, I was retrieving her. What's it called? Breathalyzer or whatever. Not you know, the thing for her asthma, whatever you call it.
Yeah, inhaler.
Inhaler, that's the word.
Yeah.
Hunter Eli Finley, what does that mean? I don't know. Dario's in here just saying random things in the chat, so
yeah.
I don't know what he's talking about.
iRobot
makes sense.
I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah.
It was during the Shia LaBeouf is everybody's sidekick phase of movies.
Oh yeah, he was in that movie, wasn't he?
He was, and he was kind of like his sidekick around the same time. He was also in Constantine around that time, and he was kind of like the sidekick in Constantine. He was just like he was everybody's sidekick in every movie at that time for some reason.
Who is that actor who was the sidekick in Van Helsing? Like, he just kind of disappeared off the face of the earth, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, I know you're talking about. He was pretty good, too. The guy who played the friar.
Yeah. Let's see. That was Hugh Jackman, Kate Beckinsale, oof, and David Wenham. Was that who it was?
It might have been.
Carl? Is that the character's name? Carl?
Yeah.
It's a terrible name.
For a friar, it's like a sidekick. It's a fine name.
Yeah, there he is. David Wenham.
Yeah.
Wow, he got handsome. Oh, he played Faramir. I didn't even realize it was the same guy. He was Faramir in Lord of the Rings.
He had a lot more facial hair.
Yeah.
On his head.
Yeah, he grew up and got handsome. And apparently he was in like 300.
He wasn't like that young when he played Carl, but he had to be mostly clean shaven, and he had this really baggy like friar clothes on, so you wouldn't even be able to see much of his form or anything.
And he seemed very short. Like, they made him very like, I don't know if that's how tall he actually is. He was kind of like
hunched over a little bit too.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
he just looked very. I just remember
very meek stature to him.
Yeah, I guess he's been on a lot of TV shows. It looks like, according to IMDb.
Apparently, Hunter Eli Finley is the Buckler's real name.
Oh, okay. Yes, I knew his name was Hunter. I think I knew that.
The other two parts, not so much.
Yeah, I didn't know the rest.
No, it's funny too.
Why is he bringing that up?
The guy who played Dracula. I believe he actually played Dracula more than once in his career, because I looked this up before. But the one of Dracula's wives in there, he actually ended up marrying after that film in real life.
Really? Which one?
I'm trying to remember.
They all look nice.
It might have been the brunette. It's been a while since I looked into this. It was just kind of funny. It's like, it's just one of those cases of somebody working across from somebody, building relationship, and then someone who was married in the movie became married in real life.
Married to Sylvia Coloca.
Those circumstances always make me laugh.
Well, all of those women were pretty hot.
Yeah. You want them to be, right? Because vampires are supposed to kind of be beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Even like the male vampires, which I mean, I'm not gonna say that Christopher Lee wasn't beautiful, but he really wasn't the depiction of Dracula I would have expected back in the old Dracula movie that where he played Dracula.
Yeah.
The guy who played him in Van Helsing, he struck me more as Dracula. Aside from the fact that Dracula is supposed to have pure white hair, that's how he's described.
Mm-hmm. You know, looking at the guy, his name's Richard Roxburgh. He doesn't. Yeah, I guess I could see. Like, I'm just looking at, you know, whatever headshots of him, and he doesn't. He barely looks like the way he looked in that movie.
Yeah,
just barely. They gave him an interesting look. Joshua says, "I thought that was a spoiler." Yeah, quit spoiling the buckler.
Just spoil the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Dracula's supposed to have pure white hair. Castlevania gets that right, like, most of the time. Sometimes he has black hair. I don't know, they draw him different in different appearances.
Yeah.
But didn't the animation one, didn't he have black hair in that one?
Yeah, in what? In Captain N?
No. In the Castlevania animation on Netflix.
Oh. Yeah, I think he did. He had black hair.
I think Alucard had white hair.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, he usually does in the games.
Yeah. Yep. He makes another Dracula shows up near the end of that show again. Always getting resurrected.
Now here's something.
Damn it, Dracula.
Fun. You know what one of my favorite genres of film and just storytelling is westerns. Do you like westerns?
Not really.
I like a really good western. There are a lot of good ones I like, especially all those older ones with Clint Eastwood. I thought those were all pretty good. Especially The Man with No Name is probably my favorite series of westerns. But we haven't really had a lot of westerns in the modern day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think like the last... occasionally you get a good one. I would probably qualify... what was it? The Hateful Eight by Quentin Tarantino. Even though it takes place in the cold, it's very much a western. Everything about it's a western.
Yeah.
Tarantino's kind of one of the few people that have been keeping westerns alive as a genre here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But another experienced director, even older than Tarantino, says that he has a few westerns in development. That's Steven Spielberg. Now, I think Spielberg's movies are kind of hit and miss to me. He has some, like, really spectacular movies, and then he kind of has some, like, I don't think any of his movies are bad. But there are some that are just, like, I don't get the appeal to E.T. and why everybody likes that movie so much. There's just, like, here and there's a couple movies like that. But I think he's a great director in general. And I kind of want to see what kind of westerns he has in store for us. Because most directors in the modern day are pretty bad. There's like only a handful of them that I think are making really good movies.
Yeah. I think the last Western I saw was something with Gene Hackman. Maybe The Quick and the Dead. Or maybe it was Unforgiven. I don't remember.
Unforgiven's pretty good. Gene Hackman's a good actor.
Yeah, it's one of those two. I don't remember. Both quite old. Though they're both on HBO Max.
Well, actually, the most recent one, I think I was rewatching The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah, I've never seen any of those really old ones.
Oh, they're so good.
I don't think I have.
I mean, at least the genre's not dead, though. What was that one from like a decade ago that I watched recently, like within the last couple years. Bone Tomahawk. That was a good movie. Modern day Western. And even some of my favorite ones are more modern. Even if, like, I think now 310 to Yuma's almost 20 years old. Which is, it's just weird to think about that, but it's a genre where you just don't get a lot of it these days. It's not what everybody's looking for. Or at least from a production end, most people want superhero movies or crime movies or stuff like that. Though, I mean, you could make a really good crime Western. A lot of old Westerns were about crimes. You could mix those together very well. But I'm just excited to see that a talented director has some ideas in probably a genre that is purely American culture. Now, a lot of them were filmed other places. Like you get Westerns filmed in Brazil, or you get Westerns filmed in Italy because it was cheap to film them. We call those spaghetti Westerns. But they still take place around the ideas of the American West and the culture there. So they are like purely like an American culture thing. That's almost like a dying art.
Yeah, I would be careful watching any Westerns with Alec Baldwin in it.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to be in any. I don't know if I doubt he's going to finish that movie he was working on.
Oh, yeah. I doubt anybody's going to want to hire him for anything, at least for a time being.
Yeah. It's interesting.
They've even kind of replaced him as the go-to Trump mocker on SNL after that. Like, a lot of people have just been putting distance between him and...
Yeah. Someone was saying, if SNL was smart, if they really wanted to be funny, they should have Donald Trump on as a guest spot to play Alec Baldwin.
See, that would be perfect, but they would never do it because they don't want Trump within, like, 100 miles of their building.
Yeah. And it would be funny, and people would love it, and they definitely don't want that. Oh my God, that would be so hilarious.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it reminds me of one of, involving Alec Baldwin, one of my favorite random bits of TV trivia. So for a while they had brought back Match Game, right? And Alec Baldwin was the host of Match Game when they brought it back. And one of the regulars on there was Tina Fey. But Tina Fey, I think, had to, like, drop out because she was recording a movie or something like that for a couple episodes. And the person that they brought in to replace Tina Fey on those episodes was Sarah Palin, who Tina Fey is known for impersonating.
Yeah.
And she was, Sarah Palin's a hilarious person with like a really good sense of humor. She blended in perfectly with the cast. It's just like one of my favorite moments. It's like, it would be that kind of moment in a way if they did bring Trump in. It's just they would never do it.
Yeah. That would be so funny, though. Oh, God.
What they should do is contact Daryl Hammond and have him come in and impersonate Alec Baldwin. Because Daryl Hammond can impersonate anyone. Actually, I'm really upset that... Well, it's because they weren't doing it in good humor anyway, right? Because if they had Daryl Hammond come in and make fun of Trump, it would have been done in good humor, because that's how he impersonated every single president before that. And he would have done a way better job than Baldwin did in the first place.
Yeah. John Dillard seems a little bit... welcome to the chat, by the way, but he seems a little salty about Christmas decorations or something.
Sounds like.
He said all the Christmas displays are being taken down at Lowe's? That's strange. Think they'd be putting them up?
Yeah, I don't know. I've only been seeing Christmas displays go up in my area. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't live in communist California, so...
Well, I did. Speaking of Westerns, I did like the first season of Westworld. Does that count?
You know, I saw the first season. I thought it was good. I have not seen any more after that.
Yeah.
I don't know why I haven't bothered to watch any more after. I enjoyed it. I don't
I
know.
might have watched the second season too. I don't remember where I stopped. I stopped when the main character, the black woman, escaped.
Yeah.
That's where I stopped. Not for any particular, not because I didn't like it. I don't know. I got bored with it, I guess.
Or it's just other things, maybe. That's usually what happens to me. Even if I'm enjoying something more exciting will come along, and then I'll forget about the other thing that I was enjoying.
Yeah, I'd remember where I was, I think, if I picked it back up, maybe for the last season, but I just haven't gotten around to it. You know what is good that I can recommend? Although, well, it depends. I mean, I don't know if you've seen any of it yet, but the last season of Lost in Space dropped on Netflix.
Yeah, my parents were watching that.
I have watched the whole thing from beginning to end. Although, not all at once. I just finished watching the third season. And pretty good.
Pretty good?
Not spectacular, but
does it get better after the first season?
I think
I was not a fan of the first season.
Okay. I'm going to say not really. Okay. If you didn't like the first season, you probably won't like the rest. It gets the same. It doesn't get any worse. I would say it doesn't get any worse.
So it's just stable for people who were enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed all three seasons about equally, I would say. It got a little confusing because I hadn't seen it, so I couldn't remember what happened in season 2. But it didn't really matter. I just kind of turned off my brain and watched season 3, and it was great. I mean, it was good. So.
See, my thing was I tried to turn off my brain.
Yeah.
I think the problem was it just wasn't campy enough for me.
Yeah, probably.
Right, like I have these expectations in my head of what Lost in Space is. And I used to watch reruns of Lost in Space all the time.
Yeah.
And then the movie came out. And the movie was not as good as the show by far. But there was still like a level of campiness to the movie that was appreciable. Yeah. And they were doing some interesting things. Plus, how can you go wrong with Gary Oldman? But still, like, there's this idea that Lost in Space is a very campy thing. And then I go and watch this thing. And it's like, this is nothing like what I expect Lost in Space to be.
Yeah, it took itself way too seriously. It's like, we are going to be a serious show about serious space exploration and blah, blah, blah. But it's always interesting to see how they interpret the robot and that sort of thing. And this definitely took a different turn with the robot. I did think Parker Posey was really good as Dr. Smith.
Oh, okay. I know that was a really big problem, but then they had like an in-world reason for explaining that she wasn't actually the Dr. Smith. She like stole his credentials and stuff like that. And
yeah.
But
I mean, she gets a little bit whiny in season 3, like kind of woe is me kind of thing. But she had a decent arc. They kind of wrapped it up nicely at the end. So, but yeah, it definitely was like serious science fiction show.
Yeah. Well, see, so that's why I really liked Will Ferrell's Land of the Lost movie, because Land of the Lost, honestly, if we're gonna be fair, it kind of took itself seriously, but with all the claymation and other things integrated into it, there was nothing serious about that show, no matter how serious they tried to take itself. And the Will Ferrell movie was just perfect in that regard, because all the actors in there were taking the world serious, just like the actors in the original show. But then the world itself was just so ridiculous that it was like, this gives me a really good feeling. Like, this is how it should be.
Yeah.
And you could do that. Like, this is how they should have done Lost in Space, right? Like, to make it a little campy. It's like all the actors are still taking everything 100% serious. It's just everything going on around them is not a serious thing. That would be the way to do it.
That makes it a comedy, and they didn't want it to be a comedy, so what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I still haven't seen the new Ghostbusters movie. I gotta go see that.
Yeah. I mean, I've been hearing a lot of mixed things about it.
Yeah.
Nothing negative though. It's just it's between meh Like, it was an okay movie, and
Yeah.
people were ecstatic about it. Like, everything on the gradient from there.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard anything that was absolutely negative about it.
I made the mistake of watching the pitch meeting for it, so I know the general plot. But spoilers never bother me. So I could have turned it off if I wanted to, but I was like, I want to see this. So the pitch meeting was decent. On Screen, I think Screen Rant. Is that
I
the
think
YouTube
Screen
channel?
Rant, I think, is the one that does pitch meeting. I think. Yeah.
Hello, Rick Piper. Welcome.
Yeah. I don't know, like, my problem is there are very few movies where the main characters like that are kids that I enjoy. Goonies being one of them. But there aren't a lot where I actually enjoy movies like that where the main characters are kids.
Yeah. Well, and it's 80s nostalgia, so they had to throw in that kid from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
He is required.
That's just 80s nostalgia now. They could make a Dungeons and Dragons movie, and now he'd be required to be in it.
Yeah, he could be Bobby. He could play Bobby.
Could be Bobby. I would love it, especially because of that commercial from like a couple years back or whatever. But like, I would love them to actually take the Dungeons and Dragons animated show and make a live action movie out of it. The problem is, I would also hate it because I don't trust almost anybody in the modern film industry to make it well.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that subject, did you see Mega Man is coming to Netflix? The animated show, Mega Man.
No, I did not.
You didn't see that?
No.
I don't have any other information on it except that Netflix tweeted out that Mega Man is coming to Netflix.
I'm going to hold in reserve. I need to see who the production team is first.
Yeah. It's not live action. It's
No, I figured it's going to be animated.
It's animated. But, I saw a Japanese name or two in there, which gives me some hope.
A little hope, yeah.
I have to say, like the Dragon Quest movie, I thought was great.
Yeah, and while I had my reservations, the animation for Castlevania was really good, and most people enjoyed it. So,
yeah. But yeah, I thought that I'll tell you what, the Dragon Quest movie was like 100% fan service, like nothing but like ridiculous levels of fan service from beginning to end, and I loved it. It was like, oh my god, this is the game brought to life. Basically, I think it was Dragon Quest V. Basically, was the story of the movie. So I was like, I love it.
Yeah.
Rick says, "How is the new place metal?"
It's pretty good. Very roomy. Actually, you could probably... other people in call sound like I'm in an amphitheater because you can hear the echo in just this room. We don't have enough stuff up, but just by looking at this door over here, you can see how high the ceilings are in just this room alone. That is a standard size door.
You need to fill up those walls with noise-canceling posters or something.
Yeah, something. The whole place is roomy. The problem is sound carries everywhere, right? Like, there's some carpet in this room. It actually needs to be recarpeted. There's like concrete showing in the corner. But like most of the house, it's all wood paneling throughout like everywhere. So like sound just carries. You can't even whisper in the kitchen without somebody hearing you. That's how bad it is. I was like, well, we need to throw some rugs on the ground. That'll help a lot. We just need to get some rugs. But all the ceilings are, except oddly enough, all the ceilings are high, but in the garage. The garage has normal height ceilings, which is usually the place where you want higher ceilings.
Yeah.
That confuses me. I think it's because the attic is in the garage. Like, that's where the start of it is. So, but like, that's just, Roommates? Oh, I'm living with my my brother again. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do have roommates. It's a pretty good place. Nice yard and hammock out there. It's a shed.
Cool.
It's a 4-bedroom. Master's on the other side. Except once again,
nice.
so back in my old house that I had growing up, it was a 4-bedroom. But it really wasn't a 4-bedroom. It was 3 in an office. But it really, like, an office room is kind of like just a 4th room that you can kind of decide what you want to do with. But you know it's not like a full bedroom because it doesn't have a full closet. It has like a smaller half closet, small cubicle size. And for the last few years that we lived there, I think from when I was 13 to when I was 17, I lived in the office room. I didn't need a lot of space. I wanted people to leave me alone. I didn't want to share a room with anybody else. It's like, I'm going to live in the tiny office room. Opening the closet in here, I could tell that I'm in the exact same room again. Back in the office room.
Yeah. Well, how's Final Fantasy 14 going?
Great. I love Final Fantasy 14. I've got criticisms about the game in general, but I'm loving it. And the new patch just dropped for Endwalker. Endwalker's not live yet, unless you like pre-ordered and registered for early access. Those people have been already out there playing Endwalker stuff, but it's not officially released until the 7th. But the patch is up. It took me forever to get in on the first day. And I was playing outside of peak hours. It was like 4 or 5 in the morning when I was trying to get in. And I was like placed 2,500 in the queue. And then I had a lobby error around 333 and had to jump back in. And I was placed like 2,300 in the queue and queue had to start over. But I've been playing.
So what's the deal with the moon?
They're going to the moon. That's where Endwalker takes place.
Is it kind of like Final Fantasy 4?
Yeah, a lot of 4 references in it, as far as I could tell. I don't know too much about it yet. Again, some people have been streaming it, but it's in early access, and it's only been running for 2 days now. So I know there's somebody who like skipped all the cutscenes and had already finished it, so they know who like the final bosses and everything. But like,
is it Zero Mist?
Details? No, it's not. I think it might be a trial or whatever, but I'm not going to spoil it for people. People might be listening because it's not even out yet, right? Like if it had been out for a month and then saying who the final boss is, sure, whatever. But the fact that the game isn't even actually out, that's spoiler territory.
Yeah.
Like legitimate. But they did a lot of changes. They added in a new class that a lot of people are like, oh, it's a new thing to Final Fantasy. It's not. It's not. It's an old class with a new brand. That's even the newer brand is kind of a reference to a rebranding. The new class is called the Reaper. It uses a scythe as a weapon. It uses dark magic. Burst damage class. It's just the Necromancer, which has been in Final Fantasy before. I believe the first time the Necromancer has ever been around... What came out for? I think the Final Fantasy V remake for the PlayStation definitely came out before any sequels to Tactics. So I want to say that's the first time it showed up. Because Necromancer is one of the 4 bonus classes on the remake versions of 5 that you'll see like Game Boy Advance and stuff like that later on in the mobile.
Is that in the Pixel Remaster version?
No, none of the bonus stuff at the end of the game are in any of the Pixel Remaster versions.
Yeah.
The only thing the Pixel Remaster versions really have going for them is that, and I've listened to them, they have the most baller-ass remix soundtrack of those games I have ever heard. The soundtracks are amazing.
Yeah, the soundtracks, and strangely enough, the water effects.
Yeah.
Like, the oceans look fantastic. The music, it's unbelievable.
I listen to the soundtracks from time to time, especially like certain ones like Battle at the Big Bridge is just redone masterfully. But
I wonder, 6 is coming out supposedly before the end of the year. Still no release date yet, though. I wonder if they're going to go back and add that stuff. I don't know.
Maybe. I just want to hear what the remixes for the soundtrack for 6 are going to sound like. Especially like some of my favorites, like the opera house music, like the Spinach Rag, which is just like what's it called? Why am I spacing out on that? Ragtime music.
Yeah.
I love ragtime. It's one of those genres that's basically only being kept alive by like a few people who play it here and there and video game composers.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, so the Reaper class is added in. They completely redid the Summoner class. I've played it. I like it. It's no longer a dot class, damage over time, which is what the Summoner was before. It's like, you poison them, let the damage all tick, and everybody slowly dies. Now it is actually a caller class. It is burst damage. The summons show up behind you, and you smack, and you rotate between the summons. With Bahamut, Phoenix, Garuda, Ifrit, and Titan. So now it actually plays like you expect a summoner to play. You still have Carbuncle following you around. That's kind of fun. But yeah, Summoner's fun. A lot of the changes of the game. They nuked the numbers. Like, man, they did a number crunch. So as a programmer, you understand this, but probably better than most average people do, so trying to explain it. Eventually, especially when you're dealing with an older like framework, an older system, which Final Fantasy XIV is a pretty old system at this point, numbers can get too big, especially on a server with a bunch of people with a bunch of big numbers going around, and you can even end up crashing a server. It's happened before, very infrequently, but now that they're going from 80 to 90 and the numbers are only going to get bigger, to where you expect maybe somebody's damage might even hit 1 million on the field. And if you have multiple people hitting that number, you could easily crash a dungeon that everybody's in. Not a good idea. So they did a number crunch all the way down just so numbers don't get so ridiculous and the system can handle it more.
So reduced everyone's hit points
Everyone's
and
stats and everything.
and
In
damage.
balance. They even got rid of belts because that would help a lot, having one less equipment piece. And you don't even physically see the belts anyway. They don't affect your look, so like why even have them in the game? So they got rid of belts. Number crunch was pretty bad. It went anywhere depending on how the stats correlated, because different stats ramp up differently. Yeah, got rid of belts. Nomura must be pissed. But depending on numbers correlate, anywhere between 48% to 52% changes on stuff. My health at level 60 as a paladin went from like 34k down to 15k. Like, that's how big of a crunch it was. But I was still able to solo some unsynced dungeons that I did before, so it's all good. Yeah. It feels fine. It's just going to be disappointing for people who don't understand what's going on in the background. And don't understand.
But you stayed at the
same.
same. You stayed at the same level?
Yeah, you were the same level. It's not like when WoW does a crunch and they like de-level you and stuff. No. They just lowered all the raw numbers, but you were still the same level. And they're still going up to 90. So the new level cap is 90 in this game.
Was there a change in the XP at all or not?
I think so. I think they crunched down XP values as well, just because even in the 60s, XP to the next level is like 5 million. So it's like if you're going up to 90, it's going to get ridiculous. I think they did crunch that down some too. You don't want 1 billion experience to get to the next level. That'd be ridiculous. Because that's another number that's going to pop up. You see that in the chat and stuff. That's some of the numbers the system has to handle. So when you kill an enemy and it's like, oh, well, this enemy's now dropping 500,000 experience. That's probably not good for the system to have to keep track of those big numbers.
Yeah.
Because what a lot of people understand is like, well, it's just a number. It's like, yes, but when you don't understand, person at home who knows very little about how computers work, all of these numbers have to be calculated by the computer. So the bigger it gets, the more integers have to have addition and subtraction and stuff going on with them. But also, the way the moves work, our potencies are percentage, so there's actually multiplication going on in here too, which it's multiplication, then addition, and then subtraction. And that's just more and more work the computer has to do. The lower these numbers are, the less work. Because then we're going to multiply all of that work by everybody who's in the instance.
Yeah, it's not a problem if you're a single player playing a single player game, but you're in an MMO with thousands of other players. Yeah, it has to handle the calculations for thousands of people all at once.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I get it. It actually wouldn't even be that big of a problem too. Like a newer MMO could handle some of the number problems they were having, but they're also still working on a framework that was launched back in like the border of 2009, 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
And it also becomes more difficult for players to understand. Like when you get to these huge numbers, it's hard to visualize them.
For most people, yeah. There's some people that have no problem. Like I have no problem visualizing 1 million as a unit, but I know some people have trouble visualizing 1,000 as a unit.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you have to wait in line to go to the moon?
Oh,
how does that work?
So there is the queue is to get into the game because it's just a high traffic, right, to get onto the server. Another problem, talking about old framework, the actual server, the lobby, right, before you get into the data center, into the world, you have to load up into a lobby first, right? That's where all your character information stuff is. The lobby is a framework that exists back in 2002 because it turns out the lobby for Final Fantasy XIV is the same lobby system for Final Fantasy XI. It just looks nicer.
Yeah.
It's actually really funny. Do you know what the error code for getting kicked out of the lobby is? Error 2002.
Oh.
But
yeah, I'm seeing a meme. There's a meme that has someone sitting there saying, "Me happily sitting in queue, excited to log in," and behind her is this elephant creature that says 2002.
Yeah. Well, the funny part is, even Final Fantasy XI players were having trouble getting into the game because it uses the same lobby system.
Yeah.
So once they were in the 11 servers, everything worked fine because 11 is completely disconnected once you get there. But to get into the game, even their queues were crashing on them. And I feel bad for the 11 players because it is a better game.
It says that the number of concurrent players on Steam shot up to 84,000, which surpassed Halo Infinite at 64,000. But that doesn't even include people who used the Square Enix launcher.
Oh yeah, because I don't have my launcher through Steam. My launcher is directly from the site, so like I wouldn't even be one of those.
So
now that also counts people across the world, so they're not all trying to get into the same data centers and stuff, but they are all in the same lobby system regardless. So that includes like Europe and stuff too, where we're all in different data centers. The estimate, it's weird. I think it's higher now. It's actually shot up within just a month. Before, the estimate was like 3.8 million players across all the worlds. Now it's like 5 million players across all the world or something like that. And each world at any point in time can have up to like 100,000 players on it.
Oh.
Yeah, it gets crazy. But they're not really designed to have that much, which is why there's a long queue to get in.
Yeah. It's crazy.
One of my favorite memes I saw was somebody took a screenshot of their place in the queue, and then they overlaid the duty titles. So it said ? Login queue, parentheses, ultimate. Like that was the difficulty of the quest they were doing or the trial.
Yeah. The ultimate quest to get in until we get into the game. Yeah, I like
a reset.
Yeah. I like the subtitle of this article. It says, "The moon's haunted and the bunny boys are here to save it."
Yes. So, for the first time ever, male Viera are actually visible and playable in the Final Fantasy franchise. So for people who don't know, Viera, which are from Final Fantasy Tactics originally, they're Ivalice, right? Also in 12 and any of the Tactics games, but they're Ivalice bunny girls. Tall, slender.
Mostly
they're
girls.
kind of like a stand-in for they're from Tactics Advance specifically, but they're from Ivalice. They're kind of like an elf stand-in in that game. Final Fantasy does this very regularly, where they have elves and dark elves, but in every game they don't exactly want elves and dark elves, so they'll have like some type of stand-in for the elf and the dark elf in that game. Just like how like the Ronso are kind of like a stand-in for dark elves in 10. The Galka are kind of like a stand-in for dark elves in 11. And it's just kind of like a trope that they do. But the Viera are a sexually segregated species, kind of like Smurfs, if you recall that episode of the Vomitorium. And to this point, we have only ever seen the women, but we know the men exist from the lore. And for the first time ever, due to popular demand, because Viera have been in, I think since Shadowbringers, the last DLC, they've been in 14, they are now bringing in the males. So you can play as a bunny boy. And boy, I know you have this problem often, where sometimes, especially Final Fantasy characters with Yoshitaka Amano's art, a lot of like Japanese characters can seem like girls, like femboys, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? No, these 100% femboys, these male Vieras. They basically, they're a little more square, right? They don't necessarily have the hips, but they basically just kind of look like you took the tits off the female Vieras. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I've seen like maybe it was fan art or something.
Yeah.
Of male Vieras that looked male.
See, I always assumed that they, because the Viera are tall and slender, and they're a hunting species, but they're sexually segregated, so both of them.
They kind of look like elves.
Yeah, they kind of need to be a little musculature, like toned, because they all do their own hunting. It's not like the men do the hunting for the women or anything. I would assume that the male Viera would look probably similar to slender but toned basketball players. That would be the build I would assume they would have, right?
I would think of them like Legolas from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, maybe. I could kind of see that too. But like my image was always, I assumed they'd be like basketball players. They are not.
Yeah. Well, they're tall, right?
Yeah, in some cases, they look a little more feminine than the women, aside from lacking tits.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you're right. Yeah, they look like Link when he's sneaking into the Gerudo fortress.
100% femboys. The femboy rabbits. I hope you're happy, Final Fantasy fans.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Not what I imagined male Viera look like at all.
No, who are the cat girls? Because I made a cat girl.
Oh, the Mikote?
When I did. Yeah.
Okay, so the Mikote are native to the Heidelin is the name of the world. The Alliance is Eorzea, so that's where you play most of the game in. But those are native. They're actually a reference to 11 because all of the species that you play as in 12 or in 14 are kind of like redos but variants of the ones from 11. There was a female-only catgirl species in 11, and then in this game, they actually let you play as the male and female for this cat species.
Yeah. Here.
Yeah.
Tell me this. Yeah, that looks like a female, right?
Yeah. No, that's totally a dude. Totally.
It is a dude, apparently. Yeah. But yeah, very, very feminine looking.
But here's the thing, right? Who would want to play as a male Viera anyway? I mean, maybe a woman. Maybe a woman would want to play as a male Viera, right? If I
or someone who's
Viera, I want a hot one that I can look at the entire time I'm playing.
Yeah. I'm playing as a cat girl, so, there you go.
Lately I've been playing as a Lalafell all the way up through because I've been playing with a group of people and we're all playing potato children, as they're called. And honestly, I thought the species was kind of ridiculous at first, but the more and more I play it, like, this actually might be my favorite species in the game. They're kind of fun. Especially when you see this little potato child flex on you. And there's nothing you do about it because you're the team tank, so it's like, well, I mean, they are the toughest one here.
Now, they have pretty big ears, too. They almost look like cat people.
Yeah, they're the this game's equivalent to the Taru from 11.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Except they don't speak all childish. So one of the weird things about the Taru in Final Fantasy 11 is they speak all whittle and cutesy wootsy, but they also kind of rhyme from time. They're supposed to be like gnomes or like halflings, right? So they're very sprightly people, and they have like a very childish way of talking, which Square does from time to time, even in like the remakes of the Mana series with the sprite people or whatever. They talk all they're rapping gnomes. They talk all cutesy wootsy, but they rhyme, so they're little cutesy wootsy children rapping gnomes. That's the best way to describe the Taru. The Lalafell are not that way at all. They talk just like normal people. Actually, most of them even have pretty deep voices too, because they just get different voice actors and stuff. You'll have little Lalafells that sound like this, even though they're like a yard tall. They're fun. They're devious too. Like a lot of the backstabbing plots have been done by Lalafells.
Yeah. Don't mess with him.
Yeah. Little potato child going to shank you in your shin.
Interesting. So you haven't been to the moon yet, or have you?
No. Well, I can't. I haven't paid for the game yet, so I'm still stuck in the free trial. I've been watching.
Oh,
the moon, though.
You have to pay to get to that part.
Well, you have to buy the expansions.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
Which the collector's edition, which will probably include everything except for the new Endwalker, will probably be on sale again soon. Whenever they decide to relist it. I was looking, the second the game went down for maintenance, they delisted the collector's edition that had like the complete collection and stuff, which is normally $60. Probably because they need to update some stuff about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, people have been going to the moon. They apparently, this is kind of a spoiler, but I expect it if you know anything from Final Fantasy. The Hummingways are there.
The Hummingways?
The Hummingways.
Is that related to the naming way?
The naming way was a specific name of one of the Hummingways.
Oh, okay.
There's like a whole village of them on the moon.
Aren't they rabbits?
Yeah, they're kind of rabbits. They're like actual rabbits, not rabbit people. Like they have more of the form of a rabbit.
They're like anthropomorphic rabbits.
Yeah. They're like if Disney Robin Hood rabbits, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And that's cool. I was glad that they showed up. I always liked Naming Way's story in the remake, the 3D one, because you can't change your name due to the voice acting, so he has to go like find his purpose in life, and you just keep running into him everywhere.
Yeah, doesn't he keep changing what he does?
Yeah, he eventually he becomes Mapping Way and stuff like that. It's like, here's your map and all these different things. Like, well, now that you got a map, I don't have anything else to do with that, so I guess I got to go find another purpose in life.
Yeah, Dario was bringing up Quake like we didn't talk about it like 2 months ago.
Yeah, well, so they actually just announced that the Horde mode is getting like completely remastered. They're not just adding it in. They're completely remastering the Horde mode and putting that in.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Quake's been remastered for a while though. Like the game it was. That's the weird part. Like we talked about that.
Yeah.
which is my favorite first-person shooter game.
Yeah, and I got an announcement. I don't know if anyone's interested in this, but the Stanley Parable is finally finished after like 3 years or however long it's been in development.
I didn't realize that it wasn't already finished.
Oh, they've been working on it. They announced there were going to be. I mean, I guess it's available, but like the final Ultra Deluxe version, they announced it like 2 or 3 years ago. So they've been working on it. I guess I just assumed they gave up. But no, they just got an announcement like yesterday or today saying it's done. It's going to be available early next year. So
cool. That's an interesting game, right? Because like normally I will shit on games that are walking simulators or basically just a narrative path. But the interesting thing about that game is that it is a changing narrative path. It's basically a visual novel where the whole thing is just narration and your decisions change what the story is. So that's kind of cool. Like, it's unique. It gets a pass.
Isn't it like a Portal 2 mod, basically?
I think initially it was.
Isn't that how it started?
A lot of the physics seem the same, too.
Yeah. Man, I remember my son playing that like 5 years ago. It's ridiculous. It's been around forever, but like has never been completed.
Yeah, I always thought it was done. I was weird to hear it's like we completed.
Yeah, or maybe there was a version that was completed, but this is like they're calling it
the official
deluxe version or something. Yeah. Some games just seem to stay in 0.x version for years and years and years. Like Minecraft, I think, was probably the one that kicked that off.
Oh, yeah.
That whole idea.
Or Ark. I remember, like, it was a couple of years ago, Ark finally came out. I'm like, wait, but hasn't Ark been out for like half a decade now?
Yeah, Star Citizen, isn't that?
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, has that officially been released yet?
I have no clue. Well,
no, but people have been playing it.
Our Star Citizen contact isn't in the chat today.
Oh, who's that?
It's Mr. Squeakers, isn't it? He's the one that always comes on talking about Star Citizen.
Oh, right. Yeah. It will never be released, ever. But you can spend money on it, that's for sure.
You know what? I think so. We're getting to a point. Actually, I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. This is a good time to talk about it for the end of the show. I think the idea of a launch of a game in the historical sense might soon be obsolete for everything outside of like very specific areas like Nintendo games and stuff like that, right? Yeah. I think when it comes, especially in the indie field, I think the idea of the alpha and beta builds as they've been doing it, like the early access, I think we need to change the terminology and the mindset on this, right? Because we are outsourcing a lot of the work that would normally be done by in-house testers and stuff like that to the audience, but they can spend money and they can play the game. I think we should consider it a game launched the second the public can play it, even if it's early access or not. But it's fine to have different stages of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's this old mindset, because a lot of people get angry, too, when they think about, like, oh, this game's been in early access forever. It's like, yeah, but have you been enjoying it and playing it forever? You know? Like, have you been getting your money's worth out of it, too? Have you been getting your time's worth? Like, I think we need to completely, like, rewire our brains about the framework of video game development, because some of these long process, almost community-driven games, because a lot of them wouldn't even get to the point of being finished without community testing and reports and so on and so forth. These kind of like crowdsourced games in a way, whether it's from funding or work on the behalf of players, are technically already launched. It's a different type of game development that can make things possible for smaller indie developers.
Yeah. And
I don't know, we need to think of it differently. It's a different type of development. It's non-traditional.
Yeah, Oxygen Not Included is a great example of that, where they were basically in early access for a year or two, before they officially launched, and I was playing it and enjoying it for however long, a year or two before it was officially out. And then they came out with a DLC that was in early access and has actually just announced that they are finished with that too, and it's launching in the next month or so. And it's like I've been playing that DLC for like over a year now, because it's kind of interesting because it does continually evolve.
Yeah.
So when the game first came out, it was very rudimentary, and they basically used the money from people paying for early access to continue developing it until they were satisfied. So I thought about that actually when I first started my game company in 2015. One of my ideas was to potentially remake, and I didn't know exactly how close to the original this was going to be, or if it was going to be something very different. But I was originally to remake a game like the original Pool of Radiance or the gold box SSI games. But my idea was, let's release it in stages, because like Pool of Radiance is very much segregated into sections. Like you really can't go to the end of the game right away. You have to clear the slums, and then you have to go to this area and clear that area, and have to go to that area. And I was like, we could just gate those off, build the engine, and create an area, and then release it like that.
And
maybe for free.
Invisible walls as more areas.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that was I had that idea. I mean, I'm sure plenty of other people did too, but ideas like that. But that was my idea to do when we first started to talk to actually talking to Wizards of the Coast about doing a game. That was going to be my first pitch for an actual game, was to redo like Pool of Radiance, but do it sort of crowdfunding. I mean, problem is, I think it was a little bit before its time, because nowadays you could totally do that, crowdfund, early access, build out part of it, let people play with that. They may finish that part, but then you'll have time to build out the next part and then release that segment. It was kind of more of the sort of the Sam and Max game, how that was released in chapters. Or King's
Quest. My problem with a lot of episodic games are, even though it carries the save file over, the episodes are kind of like isolated.
Yeah.
Right. What I would and you could do this in the modern build, is like you could release it episodically, but all it does is it's like more of like a puzzle, right? You just keep adding more pieces, and it builds up. Yeah. But you still have the full puzzle in front of you.
And see, with my idea, it was more what you're talking about, where it wouldn't be an episode, because you could go back and redo the other stuff, and you'd get, as we added more sections of the game, you'd also add more levels that you could get to, and more spells that you could cast, and
you
more
would just raise
equipment
the level
that you
cap
could
and
get.
Stuff like that.
Get different kinds of equipment and all kinds of stuff, and essentially enhance the base game as we went along as well. So
I've been wanting to do that, especially because some of my favorite games now have been somewhat spiritual successors to good games, from people who are fans and just not happy with the direction the games have been going. And I've been thinking of a while of how a spiritual successor to the old Final Fantasy style could work. Especially because Square has even been thinking about that on their side companies. They just refuse to do it with their main games. Yeah. And I think an episodic release like that builds the world bigger and bigger would work for a Final Fantasy type game.
I have the latest RPG maker.
Yeah, we could work on something.
We could actually do that.
Really good at old school video game art.
Yeah, and it has the old school battle screen and everything built into it. So
we
just gotta find the time.
Everything. Yeah. But I was actually going to use Final Fantasy as an example of how development's changed, especially in this aspect, because in the start of the games, this is what I would call classic development. It was almost like how a battle would work with the turn-based, where all the inputs, all your decisions are made before the battle starts. So that's the development cycle, and then you compile the game and you set it out, and then all the actions play out, which is the players playing the game, and you don't really ever get any feedback until people play the game, and that's it. That's the game. You can't change it now. It's already out, right? All your decisions were
Yeah.
made. But as a while, it's been progressing more into like the active time battle stage, where you can constantly make decisions as the battle is playing out, as you get the opportunity to, like, patch systems. That's where the meter, and especially this type of like crowd influenced game development, I've started calling it, instead of early access, I like calling it active development, because that's all it is. It's a game that's constantly in active development.
Yeah, well, I think people are becoming more accepting of that. There's still people griping about it and saying, "Oh, we're paying to be beta testers or whatever." It's like, well, you don't have to if you don't
get
want
the
to.
full game, though. It's not like you're paying more and more and more. You paid once for early access.
And look at the alternative. The alternative seems to be something like Cyberpunk 2077, where they're like, "Here, it's released, and it's a piece of shit." You're beta testing anyway, so it's like. At least with early access, it's up front. You're saying, "Hey, this game's not finished."
Less, right? Like a lot of early access is like $20 to get in early access. By the time the game releases, it's a full 60. It's like, well, you've been beta testing this game at a discount this entire time.
Yeah, and you get the full game finally.
Yeah, like I
and at least they're up front.
Most people's complaints. Yeah.
Yeah, at least they're up front and saying, "Hey, you're beta testing for us. You don't have to if you don't want to."
I think a big problem is because with the Steam Greenlight and the way early access had worked, there were a lot of people that were ripping people off. So you do still need to do just as much research on it as you ever needed to do on anything. But the good games, the ones where they've actually been supporting it, I really believe that it is a pretty good system. Yeah. See, Dr. Kane says early access feels better than active development for marketing purposes. Early access feels like you're having the privilege of playing it earlier. Active development feels like you are being an unpaid beta tester. No, I agree. Like, from a wording standpoint, to the general audience, that is the perspective, and early access is better. But that's also why I'm saying, like, we need, as a collective, need to rewire our brains about the thinking of especially indie development, where the resources aren't as big. And Ark, I think, is actually a very good example of this, because even though the game only just recently came out a couple of years ago, the game has been in a fully playable state for years that is just constantly adding stuff. Active development is a perfect explanation of what Ark was, right? And it's just coming that we, as the gaming community, if you even want to call it that, but just like the collective of the audience that plays video games, might need to widen our perspective of what modern development looks like, because as the internet has changed a lot of things in society as a whole, it has also changed gaming development. It has evolved to another step. Maybe faster than, say, the people who are used to gaming can actually wrap their heads around it, because memetics often develops faster than genetics do.
Yeah.
But I do agree. At least as the state is now, early access sounds way better for most people.
Seems to be working for Steam anyway.
Yeah. Definitely is.
Well, I'm going to go watch the trailer for the new Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie that Dario was talking about.
Since we came in like 3 or 4 minutes late, I was going to let us run 3 or 4 minutes late. My fault entirely, because I just spaced out and completely forgot to move us over. With that, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with somebody else who might enjoy it. Getting more viewers on the show in general helps more than anything else, but if you really enjoy the show and want to help out, you can donate to streamlabs.com/Vomitorium Live to help fill that little bar below us, which pays for our monthly hosting fees. Yeah. And in the meantime, we will see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.